This is a nothing. Yes, did they play perfect? No, they still win. Yes.
What are you doing if the Celtics win the championship?
If the Celtics win championship, I might break my sobriety. I might act up.
We did it! You got him.
All the way.
Celtics versus Heat. Celtics in what?
4.
Celtics versus Knicks. Celtics in
4.
You got Celtics in 4? Hell yeah.
Use a vocab word from a couple years ago. It's mind-boggling.
That's it, CRG. Let's go. What do you think for tonight? You think I'm worried about the Warriors? I ain't worried about the Let's go, baby. 18, baby. Load up the boat.
Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not. No,
recently he's putting up games like
above our head for the players.
literally right now.
But I think when Marcus, especially Marcus, when he got traded, I think that was a wake-up call.
You think right now,
Rob,
it's still New York?
I do. And when I think of the Celtics dynasty, honestly, one of the first names that comes to my mind is actually Brad Stevens.
Ooh, yikes. Yikes. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into another Celtics Talk weekly post-game show. I am your host, Robbie Haytayan. Joined with me are two co-hosts. You guys know them, Seamus Zarlingo and Griffin Aldrich. I believe Nick Franco is joining us shortly. We will see, is undetermined. But, guys, the Celtics, they drop game 3 of the first round of the Eastern Conference NBA playoffs. They still lead the series 2-1 against the Orlando Magic, with game 4 coming up this Sunday. Guys, it was a rough one, 95-93, a low-scoring affair. The Boston Celtics in that third quarter scoring a season-low 11 points, 11 of their 34 points coming in that third quarter. Orlando guys, we said this in game 2. This was going to be their biggest punch. They threw their biggest punch tonight, and it resulted in an Orlando Magic win. You know the drill here, guys. Our initial thoughts, reactions, and takeaways on one of the ugliest losses of the Joe Mazzulla Boston Celtics era.
I guess we could throw away the second half of the game against Oklahoma City for the third quarter of tonight's game. Tonight's game 3 against the Orlando Magic, the Boston Celtics. This is an inexcusable one, an absolutely inexcusable one. Up 10 points at halftime, 59-49. And it feels like at that point in the game, okay, yeah, the Magic, they're giving their effort. They're giving out their physicality. They're trying out there and making it tough on the Celtics. However, in that situation, when you're playing a Magic team who you know struggles to get over 100 points, and you have 59 points at half, and you have a 10-point lead, if you're the Boston Celtics, how do you not pull out that game? How do you not pull out that game? And, well, I'll tell you how. 11 points in that third quarter from the Celtics. 11 points. That's insane. There's 12 minutes in a quarter. 12. They scored less than a point a minute with the shot selection in which they have, which was terrible tonight from the Celtics standpoint in a lot of the in many portions of tonight's game. However, Orlando, simply put, they won this basketball game playing the way they needed to play in order to win a basketball game against the Boston Celtics in this series. And if the Magic were going to win a game, this was the game in which they had to win. I mean, if not, the Celtics, they were going to go up 3-0, and that was just going to be the death sentence to the Magic. Now the Magic on Sunday have a chance to tie this series up 2-2. But how the Magic won this game, I mean, first we start out with this series. We think, well, okay, well, the Magic, they have to gain more opportunities than the Boston Celtics in order to actually win a game in this series. Well, tonight, the Magic shoot 83 shots to the Celtics 74. That's what we've been seeing all series long, is these low shot totals and attempts. And tonight, with the low attempts, 83-74, the Celtics, they take 9 less shots than the Magic on the night. That's exactly what the Magic need, exactly what the Magic won, and how they did that. The rebounding battle, 53-48, the Magic won the rebounding battle, and then it gets even worse when you look at the offensive rebounding. It was 15-8 in favor of the Magic, and the discrepancy was even bigger at one point in the game. Fast break points tonight, 18-11 in favor of the Magic, and then you just go to that awful third quarter. I mean, the Celtics have a 10-point lead going into the third quarter. They score only 11 points in the period, and they come out trailing by 3. And then obviously the fourth quarter happens, and the Celtics, they can't even reach 100 points on the night, and they succumb to the Orlando Magic. Now, this game, I got to say, uh, it would have been nice, obviously, if the Celtics pulled out a win. Now, the loss is going to, enact some catastrophic views out in Celtics Nation, I would imagine, just because that's what happens every time the Celtics lose in the playoffs. But I will say there were some warts, there were some holes shown within the Celtics in this contest. I mean, Porzingis, he's been awful this entire series, just absolutely horrendous. Jaylen Brown exploded for 36 points last game. Down the stretch was hardly in the game. He was in and out of the game. It was really awkward, really weird. Obviously, Drew Holiday, he did not play tonight. That played a big factor for the Celtics at various points in this game. But then you have on the other side, if you're the Magic, for them, this is what the Celtics expected coming into Game 3. You have this Magic team with Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner. They did most of the work tonight. 61 points, 21 of 52, which is 40% from the field from Wagner and Banchero. Rob, I believe you alluded to it last game where, those guys, those are the bulk. That's the bulk of the Orlando offense and the creation for Orlando. It's those two guys. They took 52 shots tonight out of Orlando's 83, just those two alone, and they were super effective with their time. But you just look at Orlando's role players, you could see that Orlando, they were just playing with a different confidence, a much higher confidence within their building tonight, and they really got after the Celtics, especially in the second half there. Defensively, really mucked it up yet again. And these are just the type of games we're going to see out of the Magic, the low scoring, grinded out, physical games. We saw one yet again tonight. There was more physicality out on the floor. There's just as much physicality out there tonight as the first two games of this series. And yet, you saw the Celtics. They just, in that second half, particularly that third quarter, that is inexcusable. The way the Celtics played in that third quarter, especially on the offensive end of the floor, I thought there were some remnants of what they did in January. It was a lot of shot chucking. It felt like the offense became a little hectic. The crowd, give credit to the Orlando crowd. They were really present in this ball game, especially in that second half, and you could tell it seemed like it was seeping under the Celtics' skin a little bit at times. Some of their possessions were a little rushed. Some of the shot selection just wasn't quite there. Some poor shot selection out of the Celtics, and I thought some of it was because of the hype behind the game, the crowd getting into the game, and the Celtics kind of speeding themselves up when they maybe needed to slow it down just a little bit. Now we know the Celtics, they want to play a little faster in this series just because of the complexity between them and Orlando. But in tonight's game, it just felt like the Celtics, they were not the ones to accomplish that. It was Orlando. The Orlando was playing at their own pace. Obviously, we played at a methodical pace tonight, the two teams in this game. However, you look at the transition numbers, 18 to 11 in favor of Orlando. And it just felt like Boston, they weren't getting those consistent transition opportunities. They weren't creating turnovers as much as we've seen in the past, especially in this series. And not only were the Celtics not creating turnovers, they were committing turnovers themselves. 19 turnovers on the night. A little stat discrepancy, either 19 or 20 turnovers. Regardless, doesn't really matter. 19 or 20, that's a terrible number on the night, especially in a playoff game. And what I'm most disappointed about coming out of this contest is just all of the little things in which the Celtics did not hit on in this game whatsoever, especially in a playoff setting. All right, like this game tonight, regardless of where we're at in the series. Oh, we're up 2-0. We're gonna blow out the Magic. All right, we're gonna send them on home, send them fishing, wherever, whatever opinions exist about this series out there. This is the playoffs. It doesn't really matter. You're facing a 7 seed, an 8 seed. It's the playoffs. You have to bring your best effort to the floor, especially on the road, especially in a game 3. And I felt like the Celtics just didn't do that tonight. They didn't bring out their best effort. I didn't think there was an effort issue necessarily with the team. It's just the fact that they weren't focused on all the little details in which could have won them this game in the end, especially in that third quarter. If they were a little bit more on point on the offensive end of the floor, not turning the ball over, taking better shots, and then defensively coming up with a couple more stops, a couple more steals, a couple more transition opportunities, and then the rebounding battle as well, just hitting on that. Got to keep Orlando off the glass. That's been a theme of this series. The Celtics did not do that tonight, and you see in the end the way everything shaped out for the Celtics team, and the way things shaped out for the Magic. The Magic played how they wanted to play. This is how they needed to win a game in the series, and you look at it. Not surprised the Magic won this game tonight at the end. You're kind of surprised Celtics weren't able to overcome them at the conclusion of this ball game. But in terms of how both teams played, this was the blueprint for how the Magic needed to win a game in this series, and they accomplished it tonight. And now they make us look terrible. I mean, maybe not us, all of us in this chat, but me and Franco. We were saying, "Oh, sweep! Come on, Magic! They can't score over 100 points. Celtics, they can score at least 110 each game." Well, that happened the first two games tonight. Magic, the Orlando Magic, they still don't score over 100 points in this contest. However, the Celtics, they're 7 away from 100. Now it's 5 straight losses in Orlando for the Celtics. That makes game 4 quite a big game for the C's, knowing they haven't been able to win in that building in quite some time now. And if the Magic win that game, this series, it is completely flipped from where it was after game 2. If the Magic come out on Sunday and play the way they did today and muck the game, I mean, they're going to try to muck the game up yet again. That 2-2 is a lot different than 3-1 at the end of the day. So that'll be a crucial game, and that's a game the Celtics certainly have to show up for after tonight's horrendous showing.
I want to say this. I apologize that I'm a highlighter right now. Just got out of my internship. I mentioned that to everyone. But
can I get a Coors? Can I get a Coors, Griffin? I want this Coors. I'm kidding. I actually hate Coors. I'm sorry. We're never getting a sponsorship deal with Coors. I'm not a Coors guy. I'm sorry. It tastes like water. It tastes like somebody mixed beer with water. Like I don't know.
I'm a sucker for Coors. I won't lie.
That's fair. That's fair. No Coors for you,
Griffin. You're underage. You have no comment on this issue.
I said that's fair, Seamus. No Coors for you.
No comment on that issue.
It's just Coors. It seems like a ballpark type of thing, Coors. But a nice Bud Light. I don't know the light beers. We're getting too far into beer right now. Light beers. I get why people like them, but they're just not for me.
Yeah, but ultimately, the Boston Celtics tonight were not a highlighter approved game. No, it was depressing. I mean, you look at the seeding and you look how dominant the Boston Celtics are, and you look at their team and championship experience. This was not a championship experience game. I mean, the Magic fought hard all night, and the difference is the Boston Celtics need to know what to do in this situation. And I feel like you guys already mentioned they were hucking up shots, looked very unorthodox, if that makes sense. They just looked very it was a rough one. It was ultimately a rough one for the Boston Celtics. And looking forward, it's one that Seamus, you already mentioned, is you need to go up 3-1, because if the series flips to 2-2, it's a different ballpark. This is a Magic team I didn't want to face because of that. But I ultimately predicted that the series was going to go to 5 games anyways. I think the Magic got in one, and this might have been that one game, but it's a little concerning. If Tatum wasn't still on the bench, if Tatum was on the bench, then I'd be like, okay, all right, I give it a little more. No Holiday, no Tatum, but Tatum back and your team, I expected the Boston Celtics to come out here and go 3-0 right now on the series. And so it hit me hard because I was expecting that. And as a Celtics fan, I wanted to see that happen, because I've been talking smack with a Knicks fan saying, oh, you guys should, if you guys don't get it in 4, then it's embarrassing. But I thought at the end of the day, it was going to be 5 games anyways, but it's one that you don't want to see happen. It's one where this is a game that could have been avoided. It could have been finished. That third quarter really sucked, but the Celtics had so many opportunities at the end to turn around. It was just blown out opportunities. I think really if they got their heads in the game, and Al Horford turned it around with that big 3, but after that, it was kind of like just missing opportunities. And there was a lot of foul trouble. Jaylen Brown having 5 fouls, having to sit at one point in the game, and just being in foul trouble in such a late period of that game. I think it was like the 5 or 6 minute mark when they were in the bonus already. But it's one where it's tough, because that's a lot of missed opportunities. Foul trouble really killed the Boston Celtics at the end of this game, because you could have got some stops if the foul trouble wasn't there, and you could have got some possessions, and that could have flipped the script of the game completely. So I think ultimately in the late quarters, it was the foul trouble in that fourth quarter. But in the third, obviously, you saw if they would have turned it around and, even had a couple more points to add on to that 11, it would have been a complete different ball game, as we only lost by 2 points. So I'm not hanging my head disappointed, but I think close ones hurt more than blowouts, because blowouts, it's over with. And with this close one, it's like, we had the game. If we weren't in foul trouble, we could have got it. If we could have got more points in that third quarter and turned things around, we could have got this game. So that's what hurts me as a Boston Celtics fan. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying, all right, you guys got to go out on game 4 and you got to get a win. That's a must-win game, because if you go 2-2 in the series, I'm a little nervous with Jason Tatum feeling shaky, Jaylen Brown feeling shaky, and Drew Holiday. If you could get that game 3 win, I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable. So I think, as a Boston Celtics fan, and I don't know what your guys' opinion is, but I think game 3 is a must win for the Boston Celtics. But ultimately, rough game, but I see some positives and some negatives. I'm not going to hang my head, but it was a rough game. Rob, what about you?
It was, and it was the first time that we've seen this core in the playoffs kind of get punked. Those 3 losses we picked up last year in the playoffs, you kind of looked at it and you're like, Miami, they just hit 23s, and Cleveland, they hit 23s. Even if Boston kind of comes out there guns blazing, do you really have a chance at winning that? Same thing in game 4 of the finals against Dallas. Dallas came out and they came out hot. They didn't want their season to end. So you're kind of like, tonight you look at it and no, Boston kind of for the first time with this core lost a very winnable game in the playoffs. And it was very uncharacteristic of them. And on one hand, you have, it has been 20 games now of playoff games with this core. Something like this was bound to happen. And on the other hand, you just dropped what could have been a commanding 3-0 series lead over the Orlando Magic, and you just dropped the game. So my thoughts on the game were sloppy, uncharacteristic execution out of Boston that we've been accustomed to seeing from this team for the past 19 playoff games. From a personnel standpoint, the bench was putrid, absolutely putrid tonight. They got worked by Orlando. And I think that was a real problem. Pritchard only taking 2 shots. I mean, what are we doing? Jason Tatum, you scoring wise, you put up 36, you had a big night, but some of those turnovers, some of the shots you were taking was just uncharacteristic. Same goes for Jaylen Brown. He looked it was an uncharacteristic game for the Celtics. And from the Orlando Magic side of things, you just beat the Boston Celtics scoring 95 points. And credit to Orlando's defense. They made Boston extremely uncomfortable. And I think Boston, in that third quarter, they kept going to the high pick and roll, switch, Orlando was sitting there thinking, come at us. We'll switch. We're very comfortable switching everything right now. We're going to have you guys play isolation basketball. They were clogging the lane. They were getting active hands. It looked a little Miami Heat-esque. And from the Boston Celtics side of things, you have to know, okay, this isn't working. We have to steer away from this. Okay, we need to generate offense in a different source right now, whether it's running the fast break, whether it is off-ball movement, whether it is getting post-ups for a guy like Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, a couple easy attacks to the rim. We didn't really see that tonight. So, again, first time this Celtics team in the playoffs have really gotten punked. It will be an interesting game 4 to see what Boston comes out and how it looks, because this is a series now. If you were to ask me who's controlled it, Boston may be up 2-1, but there's a little bit of sense that Orlando has kind of controlled how this series has gone from a defensive, really just slugfest. And I think Boston needs to try to figure out just exactly on with this one day off, kind of how to swing that and get it back to where you really have full control of this series. And I know 2-1 with a very great opportunity for a game 4 to go up 3-1. You got to fly back to Boston anyway. You figured, we talked to Ryan Kamitsky. Kamitsky here said game 3 was the target game from Orlando in which he really could see them pulling it out. Orlando's a team that's, they're 44 wins, banged up, injured, kind of a weird 7 seed. So I'm not super upset the Celtics lose a game. I think it was how they lost this game that really kind of puts a question mark just a little bit, right? Because it's like they haven't lost like this before. So very interesting from that perspective. I want to say one thing. The NBA refs, this is now the second game in a row that you guys have blown the whistle. 43 fouls tonight, 23 from the Orlando Magic side, 20 from the Boston side. At some point, you have to realize this is a physical series. Let it be what it is. It's a physical series. Sometimes you have to read the room. As we just got Seamus dropping out on us. That's okay. I'm sure he'll be right back. You got to read the room, Griffin. And it felt like they controlled it in game 2. And I'll be the first to admit, on the Boston side of things, Boston got a very favorable whistle in game 2. And here we are in game 3, and the whistles just controlled the game. It made the game way slower and mucked it up even more and played exactly into how Orlando needed it to play. So am I saying the referees are the exact reason? No, absolutely not. What I'm saying is from both sides, both perspectives, these refs need to kind of let these series play out in the physicality standpoint, right? It's a physical series. It's going to be physical.
Yeah, I agree with that 100% because you look at playoff basketball, and that's why you have the old heads so mad, because you look back into the Jordan days and Bird days. Even we go to the Kevin Garnett and Kobe days, back then it was physical basketball. I mean, they let things play out. Now it's like, come on, you just blew on him. How is that a foul? Like that's the thing.
Right. But like my thing is like even some of these calls, right?
Are
like, yeah, probably a foul, right? Like probably a foul, right? Like, okay, like exactly. Like, okay, yeah, like Anthony probably just got Tatum on the arm a little bit, right? But it's the NBA playoffs. And sometimes an NBA playoffs foul is not the same thing as a regular season foul. And when you have a physical series like this between two teams, a whistle, in my eyes, really, really, really can swing the game. In these low scoring affairs, it's really easy for one whistle, one bad call, one extra whistle to really swing how these play out. Tonight, Boston couldn't touch Orlando couldn't touch Boston, and you're just sitting there thinking like, well, this is a physical game that just let it play out. Let these two teams go at it a little bit, and it was very frustrating from that aspect. So I was not pleased with the officiating tonight, and that's not coming from. It was just bad overall. I don't think Boston lost because of that, and I don't think Orlando won because of that. It was just a bad. It was a bad product.
I want to say something really quick. Sorry, this is kind of on the same topic of officials. It's something cool. I know we have something good going, but I wanted to mention this. At my internship the other day, the umpires that were coming in all were wearing Celtics gear. And I thought that was so cool because all three of them were decked out in Celtics gear.
Shout out to Sea-Dog umps.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Minor league baseball.
Shout out to Sea-Dog umps.
So I think that might have been a problem tonight too. I didn't see them pregame, but I don't know if they were wearing their Celtics merch. So
right, you need the umps in there. Get the Sea-Dog umps.
I thought you were talking about the actual referees, Griffin.
No.
I thought you were like. Something was wrong tonight. They weren't wearing their Celtics gear.
I mean, that's what the refs weren't doing tonight, though. I mean, the thing that frustrated me is I got to see bits and parts of that fourth quarter, but like it's just like, wow, that was a long fourth quarter. I mean, they had their headphones on for like an hour straight, and they would not get off the mic, like off the headsets. Like
43 fouls is an absurd amount of fouls, right? Like from both 23 from Orlando and 20. It's like at some point it's a physical series. Okay, read the room, refs. Like these two teams are getting a little physical with each other. Let them get physical. Like don't blow. You don't need to blow. There was one call in particular that stood out to me, and Paulo was trying to get through. It was a Brown's fifth. He was trying to get through the chest of Jaylen Brown, and they went at each other, and they both end up on the floor. They blow the whistle. Paulo gets free throws. Brown sits out with 4 minutes and 32 seconds, I believe, left in that fourth quarter. What? It's like Paulo's trying. That's a no call. Paulo's trying to get through. He can't get through. Brown's standing his ground. The defender. I'm sorry. I'm sometimes I'm saying, but it's a bad. I gotta get a mic stand. But Brown has the right to his ground. Paulo goes through him. They both fall. No call. Well, that's fine. Paulo tried to get through. Brown didn't let him through. That's the end of that, right? Paulo can't barrel through Brown, and Brown can't push back on Paulo, right? It's like it was a foul that, in my eyes, really changed the trajectory of the game. And again, not saying that's the reason. Boston had every opportunity provided by themselves to win this basketball game, but I mean, I hate to spend much more time on it, but it's just like that's the type of call. Regular season, sure. It's the playoffs, right? It's a physical series. That's a call that you don't need a whistle on. 43 times. I mean, 43 guys. That's ridiculous.
I'll say this about that number of fouls. Indicates a lot of whacking going on in this series. A lot of whacking from both teams going on in this series. Just saying. I mean, it's very physical, very hot, very sweaty. A lot of whacking going on from the Celtics and Magic. I mean, the officiating in the playoffs have been quite. It's really when you start paying attention to everything is in the playoffs, like the regular season, everything kind of ebbs and flows, and you have your games that go one way or the other. But then in the playoffs, you notice inconsistencies. I'm trying to remember what game I was watching the other night where, I mean, for real, it was, I cannot remember the game and two players who were involved, but on one end, you basically had two guys run into each other, both hit the floor, no call was made, and then on the other end, there was a little tap on somebody's arm, and then that call was actually made. I wish I could remember the exact scenario and the teams who were playing at the time. I'm sure I'll remember it later in the show. But you do kind of notice those inconsistencies within the playoffs when they come about, especially when most of the playoffs are completely physical. And I believe I was listening to Zach Lowe talk about this the other day with Kirk Goldsberry, how the playoffs, they're almost like a different sport than what we see in the regular season. It's like the playoffs, the ultra physicality in the playoffs. I mean, look at some of these scores tonight, 95-93. You see the Warriors Rockets series, that's a low scoring series. All these series are fairly low scoring compared to the regular season. And the reason why players are allowed to get away with pretty well much, I don't want to say everything, but almost everything out there when it comes to physicality. And that's why tonight's game, there are frustrating moments when, you think within the flow of the playoffs, okay, you're gonna be allowed to hand check a little bit. You're gonna be allowed to touch up some guys going towards the rim. You're gonna be allowed to be physical. Whichever side of the ball you're on, running off ball screens, defending guys, running off ball screens, and all of those type of actions. You think you have the leeway to be more physical within the playoffs if you're a particular team, and then on some occasions they call it as if that's not the case. But that is majority of the time within the playoffs is they're allowing guys to be physical, and then when a guy is overly physical, sometimes they go ahead and make that call, and you can see certainly some of the inconsistencies that come out of it. And I think some of that is caused by just the fact the regular season is called very. I would say the regular season, it's very light, right? It's like, okay, you're probably calling everything in the regular season, whereas in the playoffs, everything is going away. You're not calling anything. And then all of a sudden they throw in a regular season call and you go, well, what is that? What is that? You've been allowing us to be physical the entire time. And then, oh, here's a tap on somebody's arm. And then all of a sudden it's a foul. You have those kind of calls and just obviously with the referees, I don't like to spend a ton of time on the refs just because I just think for teams, even if you are, not getting the whistle, there are things that you can do as a basketball team to negate that fact on a game and not let it affect you as much as it should. I never like teams who come out of games and just complain that, oh, the officiating, that's the reason we lost. I mean, you look at the rebounding battle, the turnovers, like everything. I know we're not making the excuse tonight as to that's not why the Celtics lost. We've already said it multiple times here. But just in general, I mean, the officials, the inconsistencies are certainly there on both sides. But I will say it doesn't necessarily affect either team winning or losing the game. But I will say tonight, in terms of just looking at the entirety of the physicality of tonight's game and just the series, I mean, looking at who we could have played out of the play-in versus who we've been playing for the past 3 games, the Celtics, saying we, but the Celtics, Orlando, I'm right now, just everybody's getting beat up in the playoffs. Every single team's getting beat up. I feel like Cleveland is maybe the one team that isn't beat up right now. Maybe, I mean, Oklahoma City, they over 29-point deficit they had to come back from last night. That was probably pretty tiring. But the Celtics, it feels like those first 2 games, it's like, okay, they pull out these games. They're fairly easy wins. The first game is like, okay, we run ahead of them in the second half, and then the second game, the Celtics, they basically do the same thing. But this game 3, it's a very physical, tough series, and we've known that the entire time. And I just wonder, how the Celtics are going to come out next round. Obviously, we're going to be facing. No doubt the Celtics are going to win this series. Just saying. I mean, no, we all some of us had sweeps, and that's not going to happen anymore. But I'm not. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. Everybody expected 5. I was trying to go against the grain, folks. Going against the grain, but a lot of people expected 5 from this series, and I just wonder how the Celtics are going to look potentially next round when they either face the Knicks or the Pistons. That's a very physical series as well. We kind of think, oh, whoever's going to come out of that series could be pretty beat up. But hey, look at the Celtics right now. I mean, in their 3 games, particularly tonight, I think the Magic are showing a lot of flaws. Within the Celtics, and I think this is actually a good series. I think we said it last post game where the Celtics, you want to see that physicality a little bit early on, and not see a team's who's just going to allow you to do whatever you want. You want to see a team who's kind of going to challenge you. But I'll say Orlando, I mean, they're at a point where, I mean, the Celtics, it feels like they're getting beat up out there. I mean, look at just some of these shooting numbers from the Celtics. I mean, Kristaps Porzingis was 3 of 10 tonight. I mean, Kristaps Porzingis looks like he is actually struggling in the series. Peyton Pritchard, I mean, he can't get a shot off. 1 of 2 tonight in 25 minutes. That's ridiculous. Sam Hauser, he's not doing anything in this series. At 13 minutes tonight, 0 of 1. He hasn't hit a field goal the entire series. We're in game 3. We're going into game 4 on Sunday. Sam Hauser has not made a basket this series. So you just look at that, and from some of the other guys as well. Obviously, we had the Tatum injury happen, and Brown, he got in foul trouble tonight, and we've been talking about his knee, kind of put that away a little bit last game. But you see the physical nature of this series, and some of the flaws in which the Orlando Magic are showing from the Celtics. I gotta say, this series has already been a little tougher than I would have expected. I think we're giving. If you look at what the Magic have done this series so far, I think they've actually done a pretty good job of matching up against the Celtics, even though it's 2-1. I mean, you think about that game too. It was a 9-point game. We never felt like the Celtics were going to lose, but the Magic were always up on the Celtics' heels. And Rob, you touched on it there, where the Magic, it feels like they've kind of dictated the pace of this series. They've kind of dictated what they want to do in the series. And the moments in which we've seen the Celtics win games, it's been brief moments. It's been moments in a third quarter where the Celtics get out and run in transition. They come up with turnovers and they get the crowd under them, say in games 1 or 2. And you see there's little moments in which the Celtics win the game, but I don't feel like the Celtics are dictating the series in any manner whatsoever. And that has a lot to do with Orlando's physicality and just the way Orlando is trying to play in this series and their game plan. And I just, from the Celtics perspective, after this game 3, we have to see a better showing on Sunday. And we've seen this team respond before. So there's nothing that puts a doubt in me that they won't. That being said, they have to on Sunday. Right now, I mean, the first 2 games, game 1 was better than game 2, but game 2, you of course looked at it and went, well, no Jason Tatum in the lineup. That's just going to be a different game. But then game 3, they come out, and it just feels like all the themes in which the Celtics were negating and taking away from the Magic in games 1 and 2, they arose again yet in game 3, and the Magic, instead of it just breaking even in some of these categories, right? Or instead of the Celtics actually having an advantage, the Magic come out in game 3 and they have the advantage. And it's in a game 2 where the Celtics, you look at the low scoring. I mean, the Celtics at a certain point here, let me flash this up on screen real quick. No, because this tweet doesn't matter. It's going to be it was going to be going along with the Celtics win. but the Magic win probability peaked at 95.6% up 12 with 7 minutes left. Now, here's the thing. You see there, 6:20 left in the game, 40 seconds later. 40 seconds later, the score was down to 6. The Celtics had 6.5 minutes left in this game. 6.5 minutes left in this game to make up a 6-point deficit against a team that simply doesn't score over 100 points. And the Celtics were unable to do that tonight. 11 points in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, they have half a quarter to make up what they did terribly in that third quarter, and they just can't get the job done. And I'll say this is definitely, out of all the, Rob, you already mentioned, out of all the playoff games the Celtics have lost with this core, this is easily the worst one. Easily, by far, because you had a chance to win this game. You probably should have won this game if you're the Celtics up 10 at halftime against a team that can't score over 100, and you're already halfway to 100 if you're the C's. All these other games, yeah, the other teams come out blazing, and this was a spot in which you could say, yes, the Magic probably put up their best effort of the series, knowing, okay, our season's kind of on the line here tonight, and furthermore, they're at home. The role players just have way more confidence at home. You could tell there was a different energy from that team, period. But this is a game in which the Celtics could have won in the end, and it was a spot in which they faced adversity. They could have been the resilient team, and they just weren't down the stretch. And it's unfortunate because it's just a bucket. I mean, it's 1 3-pointer. And let's mention that too tonight. The Celtics, 27 threes taken tonight, 27 out of 74 shots. That is uncharacteristic for the Celtics. 9 of 27 from the floor. And that's where you want to beat Orlando. Look, 8 of 32 for Orlando. Those are the kind of margins Orlando wants to work in. And those are the kind of margins you have to put in favor of yourself if you're the Celtics, because, I mean, we've talked about it in the Celtics, they in the series, I should say the Magic in the series, they're the team who need the more opportunities. They need more opportunities in order to win these games. And the Celtics in this game 3, in that second half, I don't know how you could have given the Orlando Magic more opportunities if you're the Celtics the way they played.
And you know what? This wasn't Orlando's best punch. It just wasn't. And you are still not getting anything out of anyone else. Wendell Carter had himself a nice game with a double-double, 10 points, 12 rebounds. But you didn't get anything out of KCP. You got nothing out of Corey Joseph. You got nothing out of Cole Anthony. Anthony Black gave you a solid 9 points. He really was contributing in the other assets of the game. But this wasn't Orlando's best punch. This wasn't like a haymaker. Orlando is going to swing on you. They're going to come out firing. No, this was in Orlando. They scored 95 points. I mean, they scored 95 points in a game in which Franz and Paolo, you did your job. Yeah, they had 32 and 29. They shot under 40% or 40%. Each of them. I mean, Paolo was 23% from behind the arc. You managed to get both of them to be a minus in the box minus. In some way, somehow, you got Paolo to turn the ball over 4 times. And somehow you managed to drop this game. And I mean, it is apparent here in the lead tracker, where here comes Boston. Largest lead of the night was 11 in that start of that third quarter. And it just, nothing changed. And obviously that 11 points in that third quarter swung, and you're sitting there going into the fourth down 3 points, thinking to yourself, how are we really down 3 points? As if Boston just kind of shows up in this fourth quarter, we're going to be in the clear and we're going to get that sea of green to come back, right? Not at all. It was just absolutely putrid down the stretch, guys. And, you look at this game and I'm almost tempted to say this wasn't Orlando's best shot. And if Boston doesn't go a different direction from an offensive standpoint, Orlando has every right to sit here and think they could make this a series. This could get pushed 1 extra game. We could see, and I say that, and I will say this. Boston is tough to beat just once, right? I mean, Orlando did need some things to really go their way down the stretch to pull out this win. It's tough to beat Boston 1 time. It's even harder to beat them 2 times in a row. And that's kind of like when you look at it because again, the playoffs are a chess match, right? So you're thinking Boston comes out, they handle business at home. They lose a game 3. That's where their chess match is played. Can you beat us again? Because if you can't, right, we're going to come out ready to go for game 4. Just like that, Boston finds themselves up 3-1. And all of this game 3, right? All this game 3 hoopla means absolutely nothing. And That's the interesting part of the series. How is Boston going to respond? Are they going to show up in game 4 ready to control this series and take this thing back up 3-1 back to Boston?
Am I mistaken? Let me see here. So the whole season, even though the Celtics went on their little 500 tangent in the middle portion of the season, I think our only back-to-back loss scenarios this year, it was Orlando December 23rd and then Philly December 25th, unfortunately on Christmas, and then it was Detroit and Cleveland at the end of February there. I think those were the only 2 times in which the Celtics lost back-to-back games this season. I might be wrong. There might be more occasions. If I'm not, I'm not really sure. I know all I know is though the stat is very in the Celtics. It favors the Celtics when it comes to the Celtics coming off of a loss. I mean, the Celtics have been the best team in the NBA coming off a loss this season. Essentially, maybe you could say Oklahoma City or Cleveland, or maybe they have better records, but one of the 3 teams. What was I going to say about this game, though? I mean, okay, so I'll ask this question, you guys. I'll prompt this question. Jamal Mosley, Coach of the Year candidate last 2 years. Did he actually win Coach of the Year last year? I don't remember. I never remember who wins Coach of the Year.
No, it was Dagnall.
Okay, so but Jamal Mosley, he's in the running. He's been in the running with the Magic so far through his tenure. Do you guys believe Joe Mazzulla is being outcoached in this series? I hate to bring up the Joe Mazzulla. I hate to bring up the whole, can Joe Mazzulla do the whole X's and O's thing on this broadcast already 3 games into the playoffs? And I did it last year in game 2 after the Heat won game 2 last year. And I felt after that game, after the Celtics, of course they go and win that series. They lose game 2 in Cleveland. They win that series. It's like, I was kind of feeling a little stupid after going live and talking about the X's and O's between Spoelstra and Mazzulla during that series, especially when the Celtics just wiped the Heat the rest of the way. However, it's like these are why these questions come up. I mean, right now we're talking about the Magic controlling how they want to play in this series and doing a fairly good job at it. And it feels like tonight the Celtics, the Magic, they defensively, we know the Magic are a great team, and the Celtics, they're stifled at moments tonight. It just feels like they don't have a lot of creative options to go to. There's a lot of ISO action going on. There's a lot of the same action going on without any adjustment to what the defense is giving the offense. So I prompt the question, is Joe Mazzulla being outcoached by Jamal Mosley in this series? And Griffin, I believe you have something to say on this.
Yeah, I kind of want to start off. I don't think necessarily completely, but I have to say this. I think from my perspective, what I notice is Jamal Mosley was you saw how into the game he was, especially in that 4th quarter. And I have to say this, and Andrew would answer this 10 times better than I would, but coaches that give their heart out, and he was mad. You saw him jumping up and down. Like, coaches that give their full heart and run with the players, that motivates players, and that might be a little off topic, but I think there's been parts in this series that have frustrated me with Joe Mazzulla, like him telling Tatum to get up, stuff like that. And I don't know though. I wouldn't say he's necessarily getting out coached. But it's definitely a conversation worth having. What are your thoughts, Rob? I don't really have too much on that question.
Did he get out coached tonight? Absolutely. Has he gotten out coached overall in the series? It's a tough question because I still view these first 3 games as dominated from a game planning aspect and how the game played out, dominated by Orlando. And something I said coming into this series was Boston and Orlando can play the exact style of ball Orlando wants them to play, and Boston will just out-talent them. And that wasn't the case tonight. It was the case in games 1 and 2. We saw it clear as day, right? From a coaching standpoint, Joe hasn't done anything where I'm like, wow, that was good, right? Like, oh, look at that scheme. Look at that. Paulo and Franz have kind of gotten theirs, right? And the other guys have just kind of taken themselves out of the game. And I think this game in this series is one. It can be one off just talent alone, and Joe can get out coached and they can still walk away in this series in 5. But I do think Joe needs to figure out how to get Boston to completely just control the game, whether that's running the ball through Tatum. However, I would not say that's going to work out with what we saw him with what we saw out of Jason Tatum tonight. We'll touch into in just a second. And you got to control the glass. You have to control the glass some way, somehow, whether it's a Joe Mazzulla problem or a player's effort, whatever the problem is, you have to close out possessions. And on the flip side, that's the defensive problem, right? Is closing out the possession, because Boston's, again, they scored 95 points, and it probably, I don't know what the second chance points are. I don't know if any of you guys have that stat on you at this instant, but you can't give Orlando 2 shots. You just can't. Seamus, do you have that number?
So second chance points. Let me get this straight. Let me make sure. Okay, I am looking at the wrong game. I was like, why? Like, I feel like this is definitely not the number. I was looking at game 1. Yeah, second chance points. Here we go. Much more accurate. Orlando, 16 second chance points tonight to Boston's 10. So they win the second chance points battle there. And I'll just say this. I mean, the offensive rebounding and the second chance points, I mean, that's a huge thing for Orlando in this series. A huge thing for Orlando. Yes. Also, the rebounding battle. I believe
What
some
was
of these
that?
numbers-
Offensive rebounding.
So offensive rebounding tonight was Celtics had 8 offensive rebounds. Yeah, I already mentioned this. I was making sure I had my stats right here because I believe, I wrote one down a little. Should have been from another game here, but 8 to 15. So 15
Right.
offensive rebounds from the Magic tonight,
So-
and then 8 from the Celtics.
And that right there is my point, where it's like, all right, that is Orlando playing the way Orlando wants to play. And that's a little bit of coaching in my head. And then from the offensive side of things, you talk about coaching. I'm going to be a broken record on this tonight. Stop with the high pick and roll action on a team that is so okay with switching everything. Stop it. Wendell Carter is absolutely capable of guarding Jason Tatum from 35 feet out. It is something that Orlando's okay with. And especially when Boston's not shooting the 3 ball to the best of their ability, Orlando's going to clog up the paint a little bit. So Boston needed to steer away from that, and they didn't. And when a team's doing something over and over and over and over again, my first thought goes, okay, the coach needs to steer them away from this. So is Mazzulla getting out-coached? No. Did he get out-coached tonight? Yes. Game 4 is a tell. Game 4 will be a tell.
Can I add on to your take right there? I completely agree with you. I was watching game 1 and I was like, wow, this is embarrassing that we can't get a rebound to save our life. And it's been that way all series long. I mean, the rebounds, like Porzingis, you're 7'3". Can you grab one? I think that's the biggest thing. I feel like we played a lot with a lot of height tonight, I feel like at times in the game, and we still couldn't get a board, which frustrates me. And just to add on to your take as well, Rob, is you need to do that to get a win. Like that's what it is. Those second chance buckets, you need to get them. You need to control the glass, because that's how the Magic is going to get you. And you said it again, Rob. This was not their best effort tonight. This was not the Magic best effort, which scares me in a sense, because if you're the Boston Celtics, you need to come out with a chip on your shoulder and take this game to a fence.
Right. Exactly. And off that comes, right, the question of, again, the in-game adjustments, because this is a game which, in Drew Holiday didn't play tonight from the injury department, and that was inexcusable in my eyes. This is the playoffs. There is no such thing as a rest night in the playoffs. If you can play, you play. I don't care who you're going up against. This goes to my point, though. This was a winnable game if the correct in-game adjustments were made. And this is a series that you're getting banged up on. Porzingis has a big gash on his forehead. Brown went down, and it was scary potential risk injury tonight. Tatum's already gone down. You have Holiday out of the lineup. You got Brown's knee. there are questions on whether or not this Celtics team is durable enough to make the finals and win the finals. That's the one question mark right now. And to not pull out this win, to put yourself in a position to get the sweep and put yourself in a position to get an extra 5 days rest, that's the most frustrating part of this, where you have a Pistons-Knicks series that really looks like it could potentially go 7 games.
Oh, yeah.
You need to – these wins, when you're a team that is – played 100 games last year, your core went to the Olympics, you played an early preseason, then you played another 82, and you're kind of banged up, and you've got question marks all around with your injuries. You need to adjust in game. And Joe didn't tonight. Neither did the players, right? Neither did the players. But Joe did nothing in game to adjust to what Orlando was doing from a defensive aspect. And I'm going to say it one more time. The high pick and roll. I mean, at some point, I was sitting there thinking, oh, my God. I mean, they're doing another high pick and roll into a trap, a high pick and roll into a turnover, a high pick. Like, it was every time down the floor. Here comes the high pick and roll, dribble the air out of the basketball. One more high pick and roll, dribble. 5 seconds, maybe get by your defender and get a whistle at the rim, or get by them, or put up a mid-range fadeaway. I saw 4 or 5 of them out of 10 tonight. That was just there was one where he was guarded by Anthony Black, and he dribbled the ball for 23 seconds, put up a shot, thought he got fouled. Cornette gets the offense. It was just terrible. So, Seamus, from a coaching standpoint, Joe, and I don't know what you think on it, there were no in-game adjustments tonight, and it's a shame because you could have been up 3-0 looking to sweep Friday or Sunday night, and you can't. And you got to go back to Boston and play a game 5.
Can I say something really quick?
Go ahead, Griffin.
I'm sorry. I don't need to keep going, but I just think this too, to add on to that, it's so much lack of effort, I feel like. And that's what scares me in a sense, because you mentioned it, Rob, having that going to the finals, then having the Olympics, then having, summer basketball, going right into that to preseason. We barely had an off season last year. And the thing that frustrates me too is going back to even that lead tracker is, and this was a thing I said a lot during regular season, is keeping your foot on that gas pedal. I mean, you saw it. The Boston Celtics had that lead in the beginning of the game. Now, it was more so towards the end of the game where I was frustrated that they couldn't keep their foot on the gas pedal, but still letting up and letting the Magic come back into this game and dictate the pace of the game. It wasn't good, but sorry about that. I just had to mention that. Seamus, go ahead.
No, don't be sorry for giving a take on here, Griffin. Never be sorry for talking
to,
on a talk show here. On a talk show,
it's
Celtics Talk Weekly, by the way. Talk is in the name. Well, to me, this is just another occasion where it's like, you realize how much Joe Mazzulla. It's like the lack of creativity within Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff. It exists, all right, or I should say, doesn't exist. The level of creativity doesn't exist. This is one of those games, and I think you could point to Game 2 against Miami last year, and even Cleveland as those games as well. Even though you could kind of roll out excuses for why Miami and Cleveland were able to win those games, part of them it was about the scheming of what Miami and Cleveland was getting from a shots perspective, and what they were stopping the Celtics from getting on their end of the floor. Obviously, the Celtics were able to come back and sort of gentlemen sweep those series. The next 3 games they win and just won all 3 of them, and that's the potential in this series too. I mean, the Celtics could win the next 2 games, and that's all she wrote for this. But it could have been won on Sunday. It really could have been won, and it's inexcusable that it isn't won right now, because you do have problems on this team. Brown is banged up. Porzingis is banged up. Tatum is banged up. Holiday is banged up. All these guys are banged up, and to not pull out this series in 4 games and have to play another game at the Garden, another intense game, that's inexcusable, especially in a spot where in the third quarter, first of all, you're up 10 points at halftime, then you're up 11 in that third quarter. Then you only score 11 in the third quarter. You go into the fourth quarter still in a good position, only down 3. You fumble that away, and then you cut the 12-point lead down to 6 with 6 minutes left. You go on. The Celtics went on that run where they cut the lead in half and they shriveled it all the way down within a minute's time frame. The Celtics are still sitting pretty. It's like, okay, 6 points, 6.5 minutes, here we go. And then down the stretch, the Celtics actually tie the game. They tie the game down the stretch, and yet they still can't pull it out. This is a game 100% the Celtics should have been able to win because they had a ton of opportunities in that second half to do so, and yet it didn't happen. And part of the reason why it didn't happen is awful game planning. And I think in this situation, it brings up themes of the past where it's like, okay, Brown and Tatum feels like they're just kind of doing whatever they want out there, and the offense isn't running in an efficient manner. It's not running in a creative manner. We're not going to anything else other than what we typically run. And guess what? When another team picks out some of the best components of what makes the high pick and roll work well for the Celtics, when they're picking that out and they're switching that, or they're staying home, or whatever their game plan is to stop it, when the Celtics are stopped, there's just not another level that the coaching staff or the players can go to when it comes to creating themselves offensive opportunities and offensive options. We know this team is very unselfish, and we know that they can play team basketball and get themselves good shots. But how those shots are created feels like there's only one particular way for the Celtics. There's only one particular way. You watch a team like the Warriors, feels like they have 12 ways to score out there. And obviously they're not a prolific scoring team. They're actually more of a grinded out team now. But just some of their offensive sets, there's a lot more creativity to get guys buckets within that offense. And yet the Celtics, that creativity just does not exist. And that's something that worries me later on down the line against a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, because the reason Mark Daigneault is going to win Coach of the Year this year, and I believe we mentioned earlier he won Coach of the Year last year as well, he's a creative head coach. I mean, look at the way the Thunder play. I mean, obviously, they get after on both ends of the floor, but the way the Thunder find their buckets, there's a lot of cutters going towards the rim. There's a lot of movement on the offensive end of the floor. There's a lot of off-ball movement. It doesn't feel like that's the same for the Celtics whatsoever. I mean, a lot of the movement happens where the ball's dribbled, and the off-ball movement just isn't quite there for the C's. And that's what annoys me about this team and what happened with Ime Udoka is it felt like the team, there was more creativity with Ime Udoka in that head coaching role. And then, he's ousted from the building, obviously a tremendous head coach in that regard. And he's replaced with Joe Mazzulla. And Joe Mazzulla has done everything in which he can do at the age in which he's at and the position in which he was put in. Very like looking at Joe Mazzulla, I mean, that was a miracle selection for the job. I mean, it could have been a couple of other dudes. Will Hardy, he was hired to the Jazz that summer. It could have been Will Hardy here as the head coach. But Joe Mazzulla, he was lifted into that role. Obviously, people within the Celtics organization or franchise believe in Joe Mazzulla, including Brad Stevens. And hey, anybody Brad Stevens signs off on, I got to follow along with as well, because Brad Stevens is just a master when it comes to knowing what basketball talent looks like on and off the court. That being said, Joe Mazzulla, he was not the first option for the job. He was somebody who was hoisted into the position because of circumstance, and I think that does come to that shows itself in these playoff settings. It did last year in some moments. It's already doing itself this year. Obviously, in 2023, I mean, the biggest blunder. I mean, you multiple blunders that playoff. You play 6 games against the Hawks. You go to Game 7 against Philly. You drop Game 5 on the home floor in that series. You need Tatum to bail you out in Game 6, and then Game 7, he goes crazy as well. But in the conference finals, you go down 0-2 to the Heat, and then 0-3 eventually, and that's where those are where the gaps began. We can give credit to Mazzulla that he's come a long way since that 2023 run, no doubt. However, there are still flaws within Joe Mazzulla and the entire coaching staff as well when it comes to the creativity we see out there on the floor, and it comes out in these playoff series, because in the regular season we're going game to game, and the Celtics, they're not another team isn't strategizing for the Celtics the way the Magic are in this series and the way other teams will in series coming up for the Celtics. If the Celtics go ahead and pull out this series in the next 2 games, you're going to see a lot of different looks thrown at the Celtics that we typically wouldn't see in the regular season. And in that, we need to see the in-game adjustments from Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff. We can't just be running the same offensive play over and over and over and over again. We can't be going to the same offensive set over and over and over again. There has to be more creativity on that end, especially when the team can't get buckets. And you know what I don't like is just I understand star players. Hey, Go out there, let them shoot the ball. All right, give it to your star player, let them go shoot the ball. We see the Clippers right now. It's like Kawhi Leonard, like it might as well let him shoot the ball from anywhere because the man cannot miss. But I still am not particularly fond in this setting in the playoffs where you're just down the stretch, your entire offense is just going to be one player or two players, and it's ISO every single time. Obviously, you have bucket getters in the NBA who can manage and stay efficient at that level. And it could be Brown and Tatum as well. Tatum and Brown, they've been efficient at that level this season. But I want to see more out of the offense, period. I want to see more creativity. I want to see more, I want to see more of a counterpunch from the Celtics, a counter strategy from the C's. It doesn't feel like there's always a counter strategy from the Celtics. It just feels like they stay the course and they know, oh, well, our style of play, it's going to win out in the long run. Well, right now, this is what straight up coming into this series. I know you and I, Rob, we kind of disagreed on how the Celtics needed to play. But right now, I feel like they are, you were kind of right last game. It's like they mostly played their style, but I feel like the moments in which they've actually won this series, it's when they're playing up tempo, when they're playing fast, when they're creating turnovers and deflections and steals and getting out in transition that way. That's a huge thing when you're just creating turnovers, but just in general, playing a little bit more of an up tempo style and not playing hectic like they were playing tonight. That was what that was a theme of the Celtics offense tonight. It was just hectic, especially in that third quarter when the team just could not score points. Okay, we got we got a June bug like almost flew over into the camera shot here. It's like I almost got attacked here. Almost got attacked. But essentially you see I don't know, I lost my train of thought here. What was I talking about just 2 seconds ago before I almost got hit in the face by a bug here.
You're fighting for your life right there.
Seriously, I saw him come over here and like he land. I was like, "Oh, this is not good." Like this is where because I already pictured a scenario in the camera where I'm like, "We're gonna have an all-time playoff moment where I get hit in the face by a bug and just go like flying back and flip over." And I've already said this before, like foreshadowing something that's gonna happen on the post game and then eventually does. So I'm just gonna stop talking about it so it doesn't happen. Griffin, the tornado situation. You were here for it. Exactly. But just in this series alone, the Celtics, the whole point here is you're going to see different schemes and different strategies against the C's over a 7-game series later on in the playoffs against better head coaches. I mean, Kenny Atkinson. I feel like part of the reason why the Cleveland Cavaliers were able to achieve the record they were able to achieve this year, it's the coaching of Kenny Atkinson. They have the same exact team as they had last year. Last year's team was a 5 seed. This year, they're over 60 wins. They achieved the same record as the Celtics last year, and they're the number 1 seed. And you look at how they play, like why? There's a lot more creativity within how they play, particularly on the offensive end of the floor, and it's due to Kenny Atkinson. So, two teams, the Cavs and Thunder, we've been talking about them all year, and the Celtics may face those two teams later on down the line. And I think they just have better creative systems, better creative head coaches. And it's not to say I don't want Joe Mazzulla here in Boston because I'm totally fine with Joe Mazzulla as the head coach. But there's going to be some flaws that we have to talk about with Joe Mazzulla and the coaching staff come playoff time. We're in the playoffs right now. There are some flaws that are showing itself in these playoffs already. And I think that's going to later on down the line. That could be something that makes or breaks the Celtics back-to-back title pursuit.
It could. And I will say this, though, because I don't know if you see a defense as tailored to compete with the Boston Celtics.
That is true.
After the Orlando Magic.
This could be the toughest defensive matchup, even considering OKC.
Right, because I think OKC is the only team you could potentially see after this where, from a game planning standpoint, there's not, you talk about versatility, right? That's what makes Boston so special. Their versatility, right? It's like, who else in the league has 5 guys from an offensive standpoint that can each go out and get a bucket in any different way? And also those same 5 guys who can do that offensively can hold down the fort and switch everything defensively. Orlando is unique where, from a defensive standpoint, their 5 guys out there are all phenomenal defenders. And it's a shame they don't have, from a Celtics standpoint, you consider yourself lucky you don't have to see Suggs, but they're missing their guy defensively. This is an elite defensive team, and they're showing why they're an elite defensive team. So hats off to Orlando, right? Because at the end of the day, you won this game off of that defense. Looking past Orlando, which I know we can't do right now, only up a game in this series, I don't know if you see, right, or New York or Detroit, some real exploits there from an offensive game plan standpoint. Cleveland or Indiana, if you see one of those, Milwaukee, a lot of exploits. You can go at Garland, you can go at Allen, you can go at, Jerome off the bench, and a lot of ways you can attack, right? That standpoint. From the Celtics in the Magic, there's not many guys you can really attack. And I think, again, Oklahoma City in the finals, I don't even want to talk about the finals right now because we're coming off of a Game 3 loss in the first round. You could see some struggle there. But it's a weird dynamic, Seamus, where it's like, okay, how much of this is just like Joe and the Celtics kind of having a tough time figuring out one of the league's best defenses, which I think is fair, right? When you go up against the second best defense in the league, and a team that has a lot of pride, something, again, shout out Kaminsky. He was saying so much about this team's got pride. They fight. And man, oh man, was he right. Oh, a little rhyme there. Okay. Because they fought tonight and the defense stood tall. So it's like, I agree. I think Joe really does have an execution game planning adjustment problem where he's just really it's not a strong suit of his, and it's fine. It's not you got a guy like Giannis where a 3-point shot isn't his strong suit, right? Doesn't make him not a great player. It just means there's a weakness in his game. I think Joe's got that.
Well, I'll say this too. When it comes to this series, we came into this series saying, well, the Celtics, they can't just mismatch hunt all series. I mean, they're one of the most prolific teams in the NBA, just mismatch hunting because of the versatility you're talking about within the scoring options the Celtics have, and versus a lot of defenses that, I mean, every defense in the NBA, almost every defense has some weak link somewhere within their team. Out of all 5 players, there's somebody you want to pick on. That's what makes the Celtics just so great, is typically when their 5 players are out there, there's not a great option. That's what makes great playoff teams great, is when you have 5 defenders who another team cannot pick on. Well, in this series, the Orlando Magic, for as putrid as they are offensively, they are elite defensively, and you can't just go out there and pick apart a mismatch if you're the Celtics,
Right,
because
exactly.
no mismatches exist. And I think that's a problem the Celtics are running into this series, is throughout the regular season, Celtics can lean on mismatch hunting on some nights, knowing, okay, yeah, against, we're talking about with Cleveland, all right, they have like 3 guys basically either off their bench or in their starting lineup. You have Garland, you have Ty Jerome, you have a bunch of guys that you can go after on these other teams, especially like New York. New York is going to be quite the series if we face the Knicks next round, because the New York offense, they don't have anything outside of Jalen Brunson. I mean, yes, they have Karl Anthony Towns as well, but last night against the Pistons, you can see him. You throw some physicality at him and throw some big bodies at him. The Celtics have, and all of a sudden he was taking 2 shots in that fourth quarter, I believe. Yeah, all right, I don't know the exact stat, but Karl Anthony Towns, he had like 2 shots in the fourth quarter, I want to say, in that game last night, the Game 3 against the Pistons. And it might have been Game 2. I don't know. I'm getting my stats all mixed up here tonight. Not on point from the stat metrics here. Got to be better in Game 4, as the Celtics need to be too. But regardless, you see the Knicks. It's like, okay, Jalen Brunson, he's their main offensive contributor. Defensively, he's going to be the guy that the Celtics go after every single possession. And that's why the Knicks, I don't think, can win a series against the Celtics, because their best offensive player, who has to be out there near 40 minutes, he's also their worst defensive player, who the Celtics won out there for 40 minutes. So that's
Exactly.
where other teams have problems against the Celtics team, and where the Celtics can attack other teams. Yet this Magic team, you don't really have the guys out there that you want to just necessarily mismatch hunt all night long. And I think that's what's bringing some problems to the Celtics and the coaching staff. It brings another level coming into the series. 2 points, like the hustle stats the Celtics have to win, and you can't just mismatch hunt all series. You have to win the hustle stats, and you have to find another way and be more creative on the offensive end to get yourself buckets, because the mismatches just aren't going to be there. And that's what's halted the Celtics in this series at certain points. You see Tatum and Brown, they both of them, and Porzingis this whole series, but Tatum and Brown particularly in Game 1, right off the bat, started struggling in the series because there was no personnel matchup out there the Magic threw out where Tatum and Brown could simply just attack. And that's a huge problem for the Celtics. And I think that definitely shows the lack of creativity within the Celtics coaching staff and the Celtics team is when you have this type of series where, oh, we can't just mismatch hunt the whole time. Everybody's good on defense out here. Okay, now you got to be a little bit more creative to find your buckets. And what do we see? Oh, right, 11 points in the third quarter, 93 points on the night. And even just speaking on this series as a whole, 103 in game one, 109 in game two. I mean, I'm talking about the Magic not scoring over 100 here, but can the Celtics get over 110? I mean, come on. The Celtics, they haven't scored over 110 in this series. I'm expecting, okay, if they can just score 110, this series is over because the Magic can barely get to 100. And ultimately, so far this series, the Celtics have not been able to get to that point because offensively, the flow has been disrupted. They can't just do what they normally do throughout the regular season. That's a problem because this coaching staff and this team, I don't think the in-game adjustments and the creativity is always there. I still think I think the Celtics are going to win the series, and they're going to win the next two games. And I don't want to say they're going to do it easily, but I think they're going to do it in a fashion.
I don't think it'll be easy.
I think they're still going to do it in a fashion in which we feel comfortable the next two games. Like, okay, solid win, come out of the series with a win. And we'll look back and go, okay, 4 games played well enough to win the series. That one, we'll look back and be like, we only lost by 2 that one game. Either that or this is the second game they grab, right? Where it's like, they actually come out in game 4 with full force or another game in full force. And it's like, this is a game in which the Celtics should have won, but yet the Orlando Magic stole it. And they actually have another, like you were talking about, another better performance on the horizon than what they gave the Celtics tonight. I'll say tonight's game, it was 2 points away, 2 points from being a 3-0 series lead for the Celtics. Yet on the other end, I feel like I don't want to go full catastrophe mode, but it's like the flaws are certainly there. It's like Porzingis has looked terrible in this series. Porzingis is banged up. Holiday's banged up. Tatum's banged up. Brown's banged up. The lack of creativity from the coaching staff, it's showing itself in this series because they can't just mismatch hunt. And these are all things that later on in time, it's like, what's it going to look like against an Oklahoma City Thunder team or a Cleveland Cavaliers team or another better team out on the horizon who are just going to inevitably throw a better punch at the Celtics than what the Magic are right now, especially from an offensive standpoint. What's it going to look like then with all these flaws in which have seemingly arose on the Celtics front from just this game alone? But I think, looking at the first 2 games, some of the trends were already there, and they were, winning cures all, right? Winning cures everything. We think some of the negative trends, we go, that doesn't matter. We at least win the game. Well, tonight, Celtics lose the game. All of a sudden, we have to talk about all these things because if it causes a loss here in round 1, who's to say it's not going to cause a loss later on in time that's a much more crucial spot, is say a game 6 or a game 5, somewhere in there. We're only talking about a game 3, or that's why we don't want to get too far out. But some of the trends in which have seemingly come about with the Celtics, they just cannot persist throughout this playoff run if this team wants to go back to back. And I believe some of these trends won't totally persist, and the Celtics will find their way. But they just, in general, have to do a much better job at staying focused, at not letting themselves fall into some of these holes where their flaws exist.
Well, and the great thing about the NBA playoffs is that each series looks so different. And I think that's really important, is that, again, like, this series against Orlando is going to look so much different than a next series if we get there, which we probably will, against New York or Detroit, right? Kind of like what you were talking about with Brunson, and just everything looks so different. I do, however, wanted to get into the Jason Tatum, the SeatGeek player spotlight of the game. So let's talk about JT tonight. An interesting game coming back from that wrist injury. Jason Tatum, let's talk about him. But before we talk about him, I just want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of the post-game show, SeatGeek. Guys, the Celtics will be playing a game 5 back in Boston. That is another opportunity to check out the potential the defending NBA champions potentially make yet another run at a title at Banner 19. Guys, at checkout on SeatGeek, use code Celtics Weekly for $20 off your first purchase. Guys, again, there's no better time to catch the Celtics live and in the Garden than the playoffs. So a huge shout out to SeatGeek. Again, Celtics Weekly at checkout. The link will be in the bio. Huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring the post-game show. Let's talk about Jason Tatum tonight. 36 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 stocks. Not the most inefficient 10 of 22, 4 of 12 from deep, 12 of 12 from the line. Some positives there. Seamus, and then there's like this over looming like shadow of the 7 turnovers. Again, we didn't put it on the box score, the player spotlight. We're supposed to be highlighting the good. Tatum was the player spotlight of the game. However, it feels like what should have been a great Jason Tatum night was overshadowed by, in my opinion, an unforgivable 7 turnovers.
Yeah, Jason Tatum, it's so odd about his stat line is the 36 points. Didn't really feel like a 36-point performance out of JT. You compare the 36-point performance out of Jason Tatum tonight to the 36 performance out of Jaylen Brown the last game. They're just two different
Way
complexities
different. Right.
of a
way
36-point performance. And you mentioned, yes, he was super aggressive in getting to the line. He got there 12 times, hit all of his free throws. And that's something we definitely want to see out of Jason Tatum. But it just didn't feel like it had that fiery punch to it, the way some other, 35-plus point games have gone for either Tatum or Brown this year. And I'll say, Jason Tatum, he has not really looked comfortable in this series whatsoever. Obviously, he didn't play game 2 because of the wrist injury. But game 1, we saw him score 17 points. Wasn't comfortable in that game whatsoever. And then tonight, he's 10 of 22 from the floor. And he puts up some good shooting numbers. But you mentioned it, the 7 turnovers and just some of the plays in particular, too, down the stretch or even in that third quarter. I look at Tatum and Brown, I'm going, I thought we got rid of this in 21-22. I thought we got rid of some of the shot jacking and just the terrible mid-range shots and some of the terrible passes too. It feels like, some teams, what interests me, like say, look at game 1 between the Nuggets and the Clippers. The Clippers down the stretch, their offense, it was an unplanned offense essentially. It was Harden and Kawhi ISOs the whole time. And you saw like anytime Harden or Kawhi, they didn't have somewhere to go. They basically panicked at the last second, for as much as a veteran player can panic out on the basketball floor. And they'd flip it to somebody like Derrick Jones Jr., Norman Powell. It's like, oh, Zubac, just flip it to them at the last second. That's what it felt like from Tatum and Brown at certain points, particularly Tatum, where it's like he dribble drives into 2 defenders or dribble drives into a bad spot, and he either takes a bad shot or he's throwing a pass at the last second where you're going, all right, is that the best decision there? It's like, did you dribble into the best decision possible within that scenario? I never like to see that on the basketball floor when players are just making last second unplanned decisions. You always want to see players play like a Larry Bird, right? Larry Bird, he was always 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody. Knew every time he was dribble driving, anytime he was doing anything with the ball, he knew 2 or 3 steps ahead. I mean, we see it with players in the NBA today. Ultimately, we see it across the board. Even Tatum and Brown, they've had that within their games before. And some of the most savvy guards in the entire league's history, they've had that to an exceptional level where they're thinking multiple steps ahead. But you can tell when players aren't thinking steps ahead, and that's what it felt like for Tatum and Brown tonight, where it just felt like they had one action in which they wanted to go to, and they didn't necessarily have the second or third option planned out or the second and third action planned out. And that was kind of troubling for a veteran team, a team trying to go back to back is seeing that level of just the indecisiveness, the unplanned passing on the offensive end of the floor, and just some of the bad shots too. The shot selection, I'll say this, the shot selection in this series from the Celtics at times, you can tell the Magic. Yeah, you can tell the Magic are getting after them defensively, because the Celtics, they'll throw up some shots where you're looking at it going, they're feeling that pressure right now, especially
and
tonight.
Uncharacteristically bad shots too. Like they're not just chucking threes. Like they're like these weird contested mid ranges.
Exactly. Like at least the 3 chucking, it's like, okay, you're trying to take an efficient shot. You're trying. It's like some of these shots. Seriously, when you're talking about the mid range shots in particular, it's like you look at like certain flows on the basketball floor, and you notice like, okay, that some plays happen and you're thinking, well, that was just within a flow state of the game, how that went about, that player was just flowing at that particular moment, and every single movement within that action was decisive in getting that man shot. Well, some of the plays from Brown and Tatum, I know we're touching more on Tatum here, but just both of them, it feels just herky jerky, where it's like these the action which they're committing to, it's not coming within the flow of them trying to score the ball. And I'm talking about this from a mechanical standpoint, where if you're taking a turnaround jumper, it's like you don't want to be taking it from an awkward angle, falling away with a hand in your face, and you're fading the opposite way from the basket. I mean, these are some of the shots in which Brown or Tatum are throwing up in these contests against the Orlando Magic. And yes, they both had 36-point games in this series, but like I mentioned, the 36-point games were very different between the two of them, and just in general, the two guys in the series, they've looked pressured. They've looked pressured. They have not looked comfortable with the ball. They have not been able to get the shots they want, and a lot of their shots kind of look desperate. They look like desperation moves, and that's with some of the passing too. The last second passing, the indecisive passing, it's desperation on some possessions, and that's not a way the Celtics can play. That's not a recipe for success for both Brown, Tatum, or the entire Celtics team. And it's in the series. I'm gonna chalk a lot of it up to how the Magic are defending the Celtics and how much pressure they're putting on them, how much physicality they're bringing. Obviously, the Magic have the bodies to throw out the Celtics, but this is a good series for later on in time when inevitably you're going to see more good defenses in the playoffs with your Celtics. At least we think so later on in time. And in this matchup, we just have to see Brown and Tatum. They have to find ways they can be a little bit more effective. Or I shouldn't even say a little bit more effective. It's just being more efficient, right? I mean, they're effective players. Don't get me wrong. It's the efficiency within the players' games that Brown and Tatum in particular. You want to be making the right decision. In the playoffs, possessions are so big. The battle for possessions. I mean, even in this series, the battle for possessions in this series is particularly big, especially for the Magic because they know they can't score points. And 9 more shots for the Magic tonight, and then the Celtics they only take 74. And with those 74 shots, they're not taking the most efficient looks. They're not creating the most optimal shots for their offense. And that's going to put the Celtics in a hole when you're taking 9 less shots, and then the shots you are taking, you're not taking the most optimal shots from just a probability standpoint. That's gonna put things in favor of the Magic, and that's what I will say about the series is even though the Celtics, how terribly they've played at certain points in time, and how discombobulated or uncomfortable they've looked. And I know we're talking about Brown or Tatum here, still only lost this game by 2, and they're still 2 points away in this game from being up 3-0 in the series. And there's some positive to take out of all that, but at the same time, I just look at it from a standpoint of you have to be better, period, in the playoffs because yes, you throw away a game 3 in this scenario, but later on in time, you can't be throwing away a game 5 at the Garden in the conference finals. You can't be throwing away a game 6 in the NBA finals against a Western Conference team. You just cannot be doing that if you're the Celtics and Tatum and Brown. They cannot be playing at the level in which they're playing at, which is an inefficient level in later series on in time. Right now, it's okay because we're still going to pull out this series against the Magic, or at least we think moving forward. But you cannot have a lot of those moments in the playoffs where you're just throwing away possessions. Possessions are so big come postseason. And the Celtics, they're not only throwing away possessions from the standpoint of they turn the ball over 20 times a night, they allow the Magic 15 offensive rebounds, they allow 16 second chance points for the Magic, they allow the Magic to shoot 9 more times than themselves. But the Celtics are also throwing away possessions by taking bad shots. And taking away good shots from themselves, and they're taking bad shots, making questionable reads on the offensive end of the floor, and then of course you have some of the role players as well. Just Pritchard 2 shots. Hauser hasn't had a
Right.
shot in this series. Porzingis
Well-
3 of 10 tonight. He was 1 of 8 in game 1. Obviously was hurt in game 2, but I mean, come on, it starts with some of the star players at the top too. I mean, we're talking about the coaching staff, but it also starts with some of the star players just being able to make better decisions and being able to better utilize themselves, particularly on the offensive end of the floor, where we've talked about it on these broadcasts with this series already. Brown and Tatum, and particularly Tatum, there is a huge amount of gravity on themselves anytime they're on the floor, and it's not you can't just utilize that by scoring the ball. You have to utilize that by being a little bit more creative in how you get your buckets and how you're getting buckets for other players. I think that's another gear. I think that's the next level of ascension Tatum and Brown can go up to, is that almost Jimmy Butler level of I can basically do anything that I need to do in order to win this game. That's where they kind of, I thought tonight, that's where they needed to go, and they didn't necessarily have that level.
They didn't. And I always say there's really one aspect for me that shows me Tatum's involvement. It's the rebounding. He hit that. I think Tatum was involved tonight. But you're right. It was like the weirdest 36-point night ever. I mean, 36 points again. I mean, the playoff game, 36. That in the playoffs, and in a game which score 93, and you're scoring 36 of them, right? You're doing something right. But he looked uncomfortable. The two of them, Brown and Tatum. And you said something. It was like, I thought we were past this in 21-22. And it was like, yeah, like it was like I was watching Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown back when they were 25 and 24. And it was like they looked uncomfortable. They looked like they were thrown off, and they looked like they had no idea how to get past Orlando. And for two players who I'm not, quick reminder. This is the first time we're seeing this in a long time, right? The first time we're saying this in a very long time. So I'm not freaking out. It happens. This type of stuff happens, right? In the playoffs, your team catches you on a couple tough games and a tough series to start. Three games still early on in the series. It's that happens. But it was uncomfortable, and they've been uncomfortable. Brown's game 2, he had control of that game, right? But Jaylen Brown's game 2, it's like you knew, okay, JB, he's got this one. Tonight, Tatum, I never felt like that. And it was this weird complexion of terrible shots with like, oh, there's Jason Tatum. There he is to the rim. He's being aggressive. And then it was like, okay, dribble the ball, air out of the basketball for 23 seconds and put up a contested mid-range. And you're just like sitting there and you think to yourself, like, what exactly are we doing? And I want to ask you this question, but is this the most uncomfortable you've seen Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown play in at least the past year and a half?
Let me see. Past year and a half. Well,
Or
here's
two.
the thing. Last
2 years.
year, what's so funny is like last year, right? I don't think we had a playoff series this hard last year. I mean, we're already in round 1 this year. I think playing a playoff series harder than all 4 series last year. Because even looking at the Mavericks, everybody was afraid. Oh, Luka. It's like Luka was a detriment to the Mavericks in that series. I mean, offensively, whatever Luka's giving you, defensively on the other end, he's given up on that end of the floor. And I know you talked about it at length before with Luka, but it was last year. You had mismatches on Dallas that you felt comfortable going to if you're the Celtics. I mean, look at their starting backcourt, Luka and Kyrie. Both those guys, you're going, oh, that's barbecue chicken every single day. I mean, Jaylen Brown on Luka Doncic in the NBA Finals, that's barbecue chicken every single day. Same thing with the Pacers. I mean, they were missing their starting backcourt, and from that standpoint, they were playing Nembhard a lot more minutes. They were playing McConnell a lot more minutes, and those are two guys that you can attack. Nembhard's, obviously, both of those guys are actually, they can be hound dogs at time, but they're just smaller players, just physically talking from that side. But then Cleveland and Miami, those first 2 rounds in the playoffs last year, I don't think either of their defenses were as good as Orlando is right now and against the Celtics.
No.
And I would have to say, just in a playoff setting, I don't think in the regular season they're going to look as uncomfortable as they look tonight, just because in the regular season, I don't think you're playing this level of defense. This is the 3rd time, the Celtics are playing the Magic since Sunday last week. So, we're 5 days. In 5 days, played them 3 times essentially. And that right now, this might be the toughest little stretch I think we've definitely seen Tatum and Brown face, especially in the last year and a half. Because I mean, you could say in the past, obviously Warriors teams and other playoff teams, Miami beforehand. But speaking of the last 2 seasons in particular, I don't think you saw a playoff series last year where Brown and Tatum were struggling this much. And it goes back to the whole mismatch hunting aspect of this series and what the Celtics like to do. So their versatility allows them to mismatch hunt 24/7, and they lean on that a lot, especially in the regular season. Well, the series, it does not lend itself to mismatch hunting for the C's whatsoever. And now you start seeing the characteristic that we thought we saw go away in 21-22. You look at the beginning of the 21-22 season, and what did you see? I mean, it didn't matter what defense the Celtics were facing. I mean, I remember that year, one of the games I broke down earlier in the year, the Celtics barely lost, was to the Washington Wizards, and Jason Tatum had a bunch of turnovers in that game, took a bunch of bad shots, and from looking at the film back then, didn't matter which defense it was against. The Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they struggled taking good shots. They struggled making good decisions with the ball, taking care of the basketball. That obviously came around within their game later on in time, where they didn't struggle taking care of the basketball, and they were taking better shots and better utilizing themselves as playmakers and scorers within the Celtics offense. But seriously, the way they're playing right now, it does remind me of how they were playing back in 21 and 22. Now, the difference, though, I will say, is just the circumstance of you're playing an actual elite defense in a playoff series in the third game, so things are inevitably going to get a little bit tougher over time. The Magic, I mean, obviously, after every game right now, the Magic are probably watching film on this already coming out of that game. Seriously, these head coaches and these players, I mean, they're animals when it comes to watching film. And from the film, you're going to be able to pick out different things in which you can exploit and maybe take away or attack, especially for the Magic going up against the Celtics defensively. And this is the third time that they faced in the past week, as I mentioned. And you're going up against an elite defensive of the Celtics. I think the circumstances definitely bear to fruition that Brown and Tatum, they're probably facing their toughest battle as Celtics players right now within the last 2 years. Seriously, the last two regular season, you're not going to see a regular season game be quite this level as tonight. I would say the game was pretty intense. The crowd I'm very impressed by Orlando's crowd. I will say, Cortez Paul, he's giving some shout outs to the Orlando fan base down there, but I'll say it's true. Orlando's fan base, they come out for their team when they're winning. But in these settings, it's a lot more intense. There's a lot more game planning strategy thrown against the Celtics in these settings. And I definitely think within the last year and a half, I don't see another scenario where Brown and Tatum struggled this much, because last year, every single team the Celtics faced last year in the playoffs in 2024, there were mismatches the Celtics could hunt. There were mismatches all over the place. And in the regular season, if it's just not the same complexity, it definitely leads me to the conclusion that right now, when you're facing a defense where there are no mismatches, you can hunt out there, and you're facing them multiple times over, and they're scheming for you, they're strategizing for you, unlike the regular season. This has to be the toughest stretch Brown and Tatum's faced in the last couple. I mean, basically since that Miami Heat series in 2023. I would say that, I mean, that was the last time. And that 2023 playoff run, don't mean to scare everybody, but I mean, the Celtics, they did a great deal of shooting themselves in the foot during that playoff series. And we're only 1 year removed from that time period, where last year the Celtics, felt like they didn't really have a chance to shoot themselves in the foot with how, cakewalky that path was to the finals. You still give them your credit. They're still champs, and they're still the defending champs. They're still the best team in the NBA. But this year, it's not going to be as much of a cakewalk. And that shooting yourself in the foot characteristic with the Celtics, these are going to be the real test to see whether or not that has truly, truly gone away. Totally different core, I'll say, and gives me more
Right.
confidence that they've won the title. These guys are older. They're more mature. They've seen it. They've seen different defenses and looks many more times. That's what makes guys veterans. Gives me some confidence that they'll be able to overcome this in time. But it's still, the questions on the table is, does this team are they going to not shoot themselves in the foot as much as they have in the past? Because I think tonight uh, they unfortunately at certain points in this game, there were some characteristics from the past that we saw arise yet again in a circumstance that we probably haven't seen in the last 2 years, which is a little scary to talk about, considering
Right. But
what we saw 2 years ago was, let's face it, not a title winning team.
which is kind of makes it the weird dynamic of, like, you haven't seen it in so long, right? It's like we hadn't seen a game like this where the Celtics just have piss poor execution down the stretch, and then here it is. And from a Tatum and Brown aspect, I agree. But even in that Miami series, I mean, Brown looked really uncomfortable, but Tatum still kind of had a threshold on the game. Those first three games was just a lot of shot making from Miami's department. And then Tatum really took over that series in game 4, and completely, it was like the first time we had seen the Jason Tatum playmaker come out, and he was picking apart Miami's defense, and eventually goes down with that ankle sprain. But I can't remember the last time Jason Tatum has looked this uncomfortable in a series. Because it's been rough. I mean, it's been worse for Tatum than it has for Brown through Tatum's first 2 games. I mean, Brown, you looked a little uncomfortable tonight, but really a majority of Brown's problem came within the foul trouble department. And I thought he was a little careless at times with the ball, but I mean, Tatum just looked so uncharacteristic and uncomfortable. And it was very evident to me.
I will say this. This is the terrible part about covering playoff games is we got a classic Lakers Timberwolves game going on right now.
I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna out myself. I'm gonna out myself right now. I have the play-by-play up on my phone. It's been in the year. I won't lie. I'm gonna out myself. I can't miss this.
I have it on a TV screen, but like me and the TV screen are kind of like pointed the same way, so I'm viewing it from like a 2D perspective here. I think. Okay. You froze for a second there. I was like, hold on. Wait.
I'm sorry.
We're good. We're good. We're good. Now.
Okay,
we're
good.
Some internet.
Yeah,
we're totally good. So internet issues earlier for me as well. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened there earlier on the show.
Yeah, I know.
Disclaiming
that
if
the clock hits midnight at the in the internet, just it shits the bed on me. So I don't know what goes on with this place, but
yeah, I don't know. I mean, the internet, some games, like we had the Kings game earlier this year. You saw the delay. You know what happened. It's like they just pick and choose, right? And I usually during the regular season, I don't stream games afterwards because I know, okay, that's going to mess it up a little bit. But the playoffs, I'm like, nah, go ahead, stream the game. It's like, if we're going hard for the playoffs, the Celtics are going hard for the playoffs, the internet router is going hard for the playoffs too. That's what it's going to be. That's just what it's going to be.
Exactly. Well, so we got some graphics that I don't know if you want to run through these.
Yes. Not too many of them here, which I have to, let's see. I guess I already showed the first one, but let's go to the second one. So the third quarter from the Celtics, this is just, come on, 3 of 17 from the floor in the third quarter. 3 of 17. And I'll point this out. So the third quarter and every quarter, right? 12 minutes. Okay, 12 minutes. 11 points in 12 minutes for the Celtics. Only 17 shots in 12 minutes. That's not even 2 shots a minute right there. That's certainly playing at a slow pace. 6 turnovers in that quarter. 20 for the game for the C's. 20 or 19. We're not really sure what the actual number is. Some say 20, some say 19. That's the Celtics' third quarter on the road in Game 3, as Sean Grandy says. 73-70 Magic fourth quarter was starting when this tweet came out, and the Celtics, they entered the third quarter with a 10-point lead. Eventually came out of the period with a 3-point deficit, and they score 11 points. I mean, come on, this is in the playoffs. You cannot let this happen. You cannot have a quarter like this. This is easily what's baffling is the third quarter and fourth quarter in Oklahoma City. The fourth quarter in particular in Oklahoma City, that was considered the worst quarter of the season. I believe the Celtics scored 12 points there. Well, here we go. Here's the second iteration. Is that third quarter in Orlando? That is what is completely completely wiped this win or potential win away from the Celtics. And I would say easily the worst quarter of the entire season, just right up against that Oklahoma City fourth quarter. And that Oklahoma City fourth quarter, unfortunately, it was one of the worst quarters in NBA history, in franchise history for the Celtics. So you're talking about a historical mark here for the season when you're talking about 11 points scored in that third quarter. Obviously a very low-paced game with only 17 shots taken, but 3 of 17 from the floor. This is just utterly putrid. I'm absolutely awful from the Celtics. And then you see Gary Washburn, 20 turnovers for the Celtics, which ties a season high tonight. Ties a season high. Now, again, some discrepancy. We don't know if it's 19 or 20. Some say 19, some say 20. Not really sure on that end. But points off turnovers here. So more Sean Grandy stats. Points off turnovers, 26 from Orlando. 26. Only 8 for Boston. And I'll remind everybody that Boston, they were winning this category in games 1 and 2. And Orlando, they completely flipped the script in game 3 and won the points off turnovers battle, won the points in transition battle as well, 18-11. You could tell the Magic, I mean, they were forcing those turnovers, 20 turnovers for the Celtics on the night. 26 points off turnovers for the Magic, 18 in transition. That's the game in which the Magic, if the Magic are the ones pushing the pace a little bit and creating those extra opportunities for themselves. The Magic want to play at a slow pace, but the extra opportunities is extremely important, especially the easy opportunities outside of the half court. That's easy. That's what's going to that's what the Magic need in order to win. I want to say win this series, but I don't think any of us really necessarily think the Magic are. You see, we're continuously disrespecting the Magic in this series. Like we're all talking like, okay, they won't win, they won't. Well, they won a game tonight, and they have a chance to tie it up 2-2 on Sunday. So maybe we should be giving them a little bit more respect here. But how the Magic, if they need to win this, if they want to win the series, how they need to do it, they need to be creating these extra possessions, and this is how you do it right here. You force the turnovers, points off turnovers. And you see the bottom here, Orlando bench. Quiet in Boston is a +9 tonight in a 2-point win. And then you see the game 4 tip off 7:30 Eastern on TNT on Sunday, and then Tuesday game 5. That one will be at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, unless Indiana sweeps Milwaukee, which let's see. Indiana Milwaukee faced earlier, so let me just get the stat on this real quick. Or Milwaukee won by 16, so that game will be at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on NBA TV. Hey, we finally get an NBA TV game this series. It comes in game 5. And just one last slide to show here. This was one we forgot to show last post game. Not really a big deal, but hey, Jason Tatum sitting on the bench with his wrist injury. Jason Tatum just
That's a mood
hanging out
for
there.
tonight. That's got some relevancy now. It's a mood. That's just a mood picture.
That is a mood picture. And I want to point out here, who is the Celtics trainer sitting behind Tatum?
I've never seen him a day.
That man is he's iced out. He's got the rows. Like I know his hair is cut off a little bit, but great hair, great hairline, the chains. Like, who is this guy? I mean, when you talk about aura in any setting, you just have this guy sitting behind the Celtics bench who, I mean, look, this, quite honestly, this is kind of the typical look of a New Yorker courtside. You look at, I told Franco earlier today, I'm like, I've been looking at the court sides of all these playoff games. New York easily has the most gaudy courtside out of any single team out there. Any single team. You have chains all over the place. You have crazy outfits, or I should say expensive outfits all over the place. And you can tell there's some money flowing around there courtside in New York. But this guy right here, it looks like a Celtics trainer, I will say, could be a fan, but talk about second row Joe. Joe Mazzulla was in that second row. That's kind of the assistant coach's row back there, and some of the trainers' row back there. So I assume this guy's a trainer, but yeah, it was a little iced out. Got to give him a shout out. But Jason Tatum, he was looking nice on the bench the other night, and yeah, certainly a mood picture today. And let's mention this: Tatum, kind of a surprise that he played tonight. He was listed as doubtful on the injury report coming into tonight, and obviously Brown, Holiday, they were both questionable. Brown played, Tatum played after being doubtful. Holiday didn't play. The injury report, some occasions you can figure it out. Like say after last game, or I should say game 1, you knew, okay, Tatum doubtful. That kind of meant, okay, there's a lot of virtue signaling with the injury report. The doubtful with Tatum meant, okay, Tatum, he's not going to play this game, but he might be well enough to play game 3. If he was just out completely, you're thinking, oh, I don't know how much time, but they listed him as doubtful. Then you come into today, it's doubtful again for Tatum, and then all of a sudden he goes and plays. And I was a little confused by that, and then the questionable for Brown and Holiday. Didn't like to see that whatsoever. Drew Holiday, I'll touch on him real quick. Was this just a rest day for Holiday?
That's what I'm saying. What?
I mean, what he was on the injury report? What was he on the injury report with? Let me pull this up real quick. He was on the injury report, which bad job by me. I usually look at these things every day. But coming into today, Brown, Tatum, both on the injury report. Tatum, doubtful. Brown, questionable. Drew Holiday was questionable, and he did not play, which we are over the midnight mark, which means they have taken the injury report away from yesterday. So let's go find a different injury report here to look at for the Celtics, because I want to see what Drew Holiday was actually out with. If it's the shoulder, I'm gonna go insane because that shoulder that would maybe indicate some rest for Drew Holiday. So it was his hamstring. It was his hamstring. He was out for game 3 tonight. Now I will say hamstring, little interesting there. Hamstrings can definitely flare up in intense environments, like this playoff series. When you're playing hard, like that for a long, prolonged period of time, the hamstring's definitely something that could be delicate. The hamstring muscle could certainly be something that's a little delicate that's pulled over time. Maybe there is something there with Holiday when it comes to the hamstring. Not exactly sure. That does not, to my to my view, Holiday being out of the lineup, that is a little concerning, especially if it was his shoulder. I actually think, looking at the injury report, I would have rather it be a shoulder and a rest day than looking at it and looking at a hamstring, because when I look at hamstring, I'm like, is that actually legit? I feel like if he was resting, they would be listing the shoulder on there, the shoulder impingement, as they always did the entirety of the regular season. I don't know why they would go away from that now to put a hamstring on the injury report. That's why I feel like that could actually be something. That's the thing with the NBA right now. They need to actually give out real information and news.
Right.
Like the way I'm talking about it right now, we should never be talking about it in this way where we're going, oh, it's a hamstring. It's like, we don't really know. This could be fake. It's like this could be this or that. It's like we should just have we should be able to read information and take it as gospel. Where it's like, okay, Drew Holiday, he's on the injury report, hamstring injury. Guess what he has? A hamstring injury. Instead, it's like, does he really have a hamstring injury? Does he not? What is this? Is he resting? I don't know. I'm not. The health with the Celtics in its entirety is a little concerning right now. Just from Brown's knee, you never know what's happening with that. Were the injections making him feel better? Are they going to wear off in time? Tatum's wrist is still a thing. Porzingis is always at risk for an injury. Obviously, as we see, he's already bloodied in this series. Holiday at the hamstring. The injuries so far, they don't look too great for
I
the
feel
for
like
the
it was a
series.
rest thing. It looked, and it felt in the late addition, because it was just Brown and Tatum, and then all of a sudden Holiday pops up with like 3 hours until game time, and it just felt like something where it's like, okay, Holiday, like we're gonna play Brown and Tatum tonight, and we should be okay. Could be wrong. Again, you never know with these injury reports. The Celtics have gone away for the past like 3 years with putting Horford down for a left big toe injury. And so you just can't
Yeah.
trust it anymore. You just don't know what content of or context of the injury report's real. It felt like a rest day, and if that is the case, really inexcusable. It's the playoffs. If you're at 90+%, even if you're at 75%, I mean, you just play. You just play. It's the playoffs. Even if it's for 25 minutes, you play, and
Well, that's
it's
That's
just
what I'm
frustrating.
wondering is if it's like, was he at 75%? If he was at 75%, did they look at this game and go, not the semifinals, not the conference finals, not the NBA finals? Yeah, it's the playoffs, but
Yeah,
facing the
which is a
Magic, it's like,
terrible
oh, just sit
mindset.
him out. Well, yeah,
Right.
I completely agree. We'll have to see what happens, obviously, and what the injury report looks like for game 4. But I'll say either way, it doesn't look good. It's like either he rested in a game in which we lost by 2, or he's actually injured with a hamstring injury, which could 100% affect his productivity, because you need that hamstring to shoot the ball. You need that hamstring to play good defense if you're Drew Holiday. And if that is compromised, if his hamstring is compromised at this point in time, that could be concerning too. So either way, I don't think it really looks that great. And coming into these playoffs, I said it. I said, okay, Porzingis. Everybody's like, oh, Porzingis has to be healthy. Porzingis. I'm sitting there going, Porzingis, if he went out of the lineup, we have Horford, we have Cornette. You could throw in Kata if you really needed to. If you needed to throw in Tillman, we did so last year when he was out of the lineup, when Porzingis was out of the lineup. You have these other bigs you can go to. Holiday falls out of the lineup. Where are you going to from a guard's perspective? You
Especially
don't.
when Pritchard puts up a night like he did tonight.
Right. It's like you have Pritchard. That's it. Because look at the bench. I mean, the bench. This bench. First of all, we got to remind ourselves the final stretch of the season when guys are trying to jockey for playoff minutes. It's like, no, this playoff rotation is seriously going to be 7, 8 guys, and That's about it, because Hauser has been terrible this series. He has not hit a. I'm going crazy with Hauser because Hauser's whole the main attribute of Hauser, right? His whole game is centered on you have to make 3-point shots. You are a sharpshooter. That is what you do well. Defensively, we do not expect the world out of you. We expect a little effort on that end of the floor, but offensively, you're supposed to be coming off screen, standing in the corner, hitting shots. Hauser has not hit a shot in this series yet. 3 games in. 3 games in. He's been putrid. He's been terrible. Hasn't hit a shot. All right. And do we see Shireman? Do we see Torrey Craig? It's like, no, they're just not going to play Sam Hauser. That's basically what's going to happen is the rotation falls to about 7 guys, or about 8 guys, you could say, with Horford. I guess tonight it was 8 with Hauser because Holiday was out of the lineup. Would say Holiday was in the lineup. You're cutting that a little shorter. Or I guess I'll say this. Holiday's in the lineup. You're cutting it from 9 to 8. If Holiday's out of the lineup, you're cutting it from 8 to 7. If you're the Celtics, which to me, 7 guys deep versus look at some of these other teams out there. I understand, Cleveland has some mismatches, but they have a little bit of a bench. Oklahoma City Thunder certainly have a bench. I know we're looking a little far ahead here, but it's like, yeah, that Celtics bench, we talked about it. When everybody's healthy, the Celtics certainly have some depth. But when you see one guy going out of the lineup, right, like a Holiday tonight, that's when it can get a little more dicey, a little bit more dicey with your second options, because Hauser, he's not contributing. You don't believe in Craig. You're not believing in Shireman right now. Pritchard had a terrible night. Well, who does that leave you with? Al Horford and Luke Cornett. Well, they play specific roles as bigs. They're not, they're not necessarily huge. They're not wildly versatile players for the C's as bench guys. They're not kind of Swiss Army knives and tools that you can use all over the floor. They're brought in for specific things. So some of the health for the Celtics right now, I'll say this series, it might be the hardest series the Celtics have faced in the last 2 years. They're already banged up. Can we just get out of this series? Tonight's loss. Tonight's loss, I'm not gonna lie, it was putrid. It was horrendous. It was terrible. I mean, 2-point loss, and you pull silver linings like, oh, Celtics did a million wrong things, and they still only lost by 2 in this game. But this is a series you do not want going 5, 6 games. It's a physical series. Guys are injured. Your lineup is thin when guys are injured. And the Celtics lose tonight. They push it another game, which means another instead of that rest day coming on Tuesday for game 5, right? Celtics are going to be playing a game. There's going to be more opportunity for injury. There's more opportunity for wear and tear. There's more opportunity for Pandora's box to open for more negative things to happen. And I don't want to go all scorched earth, catastrophe on this, but these are just some of the implications. It's like, oh, like this. It's like this is what we talked about all year. This is what we talked about going to the playoffs. This is what we talked about in the playoffs. And then it's like, oh, and then the team, they're doing the opposite of what is the most optimal scenario and what we see for this ball club, unfortunately. And this series so far, I mean, 2-1 for the C's, still up in the series, got an important game 4. What would you grade this series so far for the Celtics? For A to F, what would you grade? I know we gave player report cards so far.
Wait, hold on. Off of what scale though? Off of entertainment scale? Off of a Celtics?
Okay, not just in terms of most optimal performance of the Celtics. So on a scale of like the Celtics are blowing the Magic out of the building to we're actually losing to the Orlando Magic right now.
I'd give
entertainment wise, I could care less. I just want to see this team win.
C. I think Boston gets a C because you know what? A lot of it is less so of so Boston from an offensive standpoint have been pretty putrid. Again, this is one of the best offenses in the league, and what we've cracked 109 was our highest total in game 2. 93 tonight, and then if I'm not mistaken, 103 game 1. So from an offensive standpoint, it's kind of like, okay, like they're just barely doing what they need to do. From a defensive standpoint, a lot of it isn't much so in my head what's Boston's doing, and a lot of it is what Orlando's lacking. And again, I'd give them a C. because a C plus, because again, defensively I think they're doing what they need to do in terms of Franz and Paulo and making them become inefficient, because again, 40% from the floor, 30 points on what I believe 22 shots from Franz. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but it's not the best. So I do think they're doing a good job at keeping those two guys inefficient. But what about you? I'd give them a C plus.
Now, see, after the first two games, I would probably be leaning C plus or B minus. Right now, I'm leaning towards a C minus, and I think it looks a little bit different if we win tonight. If we win tonight, and
Right.
go, oh, resilient win, came back, all these great things, right?
Championship
The-
DNA showed
Right,
up. Yeah.
exactly. See, that's why I had that tweet prepared. Where let's bring back this tweet. This one. This is why I had this tweet prepared. I'm like, oh, here we go. The Magic. Oh, 95.6%. They had all this chance to win, and the Celtics came back and they won the game. But obviously, that didn't happen tonight. But see, this is where I just talking about all the numbers and the X's and O's and the game plan, all these things, right? I'm gonna throw that all out the window after tonight's win, right? When I'm grading the team, or I should say, not tonight's win. That's the problem here. Tonight's game. Throw all the game plan, X's and O's, all the talk in between, right? The margins. When it comes to the playoffs and winning a championship, you have to win ball games. You just have to simply win ball games and do it in an optimal manner, in an efficient manner, and do it where you're not tiring yourself out and potentially losing games because of that. These games for the Celtics, they two physical battles in games 1 and 2. They won. That is amazing. That's great. That's the whole point. Tonight, because they lose this game, that's the biggest factor here for me. Like you could pull silver linings out of this game. Obviously, we pulled a million bad things out of this loss for the C's. But just the worst thing about it is playing an extra game on Tuesday back at the Garden against this squad, because on Sunday you could be looking to close this out. If you won tonight, if you're the Celtics, I'm questioning the morality of the Magic. I question after game 2, but after a game 3, if you really gave Boston your best shot, now we talked about it has their best shot actually came against Boston, but saying tonight's matchup, that crowd's going crazy. The guys on the Magic, they're confident. The Celtics, they're not playing their best brand of basketball whatsoever. The Magic are winning all the hustle categories in which they need to win. They're winning all of the extra possession categories they need to win, and they still lose to the Celtics. After game 3, if the Celtics would have came out with this win tonight, I think you could have been looking at game 4 going, okay, yeah, you expect the Magic to fight for their season, but they've already been fighting for their season the first 3 games, and they have not been able to overcome what the Celtics have. And that game 4 changes. Obviously, it changes a ton. Now, see, in game 4, if the Celtics win tonight, it's all pressure on the Magic. It's all, well, you're playing for your playoff lives, and the Celtics, it's like we have a 3-0 series lead. We have 4 games to close this out. Now all of a sudden Sunday, that's where this loss again is just terrible. Sunday, that turns Sunday's game 4 into an actual intense game for the Celtics. Otherwise, if you're up 3-0, that's where you could maybe talk yourself into, okay, the Magic could win game 4 because they might come out trying to save their season, and the Celtics might take their foot off the might take their foot off the gas, might take their hand off the throttle just a little bit, knowing they have 4 games to close out the series, which would not be the correct mentality. But we do see teams fall into that every now and then. But now you lose game 3, and it's like game 4 is going to be wildly intense because Orlando, for as many points as they haven't scored this series and as many times as they've been playing from behind in this series, they're going to have a chance on Sunday to tie this thing up 2-2 and make it a best of 3. And under that scenario, they're already in a position where they found success this series. They've grabbed a game, they've competed with the Celtics. But if you let them go even further, if you let the Magic go even further and grab that game 4 and make it a best of 3, I mean, we already saw in 2023 how that affected the Celtics in round 1 against the Atlanta Hawks. That comes up yet again, especially, it just grinded my gears last night seeing the Oklahoma City Thunder come back from 29 points down, because I'm sitting there going, oh, they have to play game 5 too, or game 5 for OKC. It's like, hey, we right there. It's like OKC plays a game 5. Boston, they don't play a game 5. Well, instead, in 24 hours ago, we're sitting here thinking OKC's playing a game 5 and Boston has a chance to sweep. Well, the script is completely flipped since then. I mean, OKC, they're probably not playing a game 5 against the Memphis Grizzlies, as the Grizzlies seemingly gave them their best shot in that game 3. Now they don't have Ja Morant. And the Celtics, they come out and lose in Orlando, and now the script completely flipped over to the Celtics, where they're playing a game 5 on Tuesday, and the Thunder on the other side, they're going to be potentially sweeping their first round series. They don't have to go on, they don't have to travel back and play another game at their home yet again. That's a big thing in these playoffs. We might not even face the Thunder. For as much conversation we're giving the Thunder, we might not even face them. But I'll say, just looking at the other competition out there, you want to gain your advantages anywhere you can get them in the playoffs, because it's a make or miss league. The margins are very, very thin at the end of the day. Even last year, I mean, look at that Pacers series. That Pacers series could have easily been 3-1 Pacers, and it was 4-0 Celtics, thankfully, at the end of that one. But those are the kind of margins you're dealing with in the playoffs. And the Celtics, they cannot just throw them. They can't be throwing away their extra opportunities and their opportunities, as we saw in 2023, how much that bit them this season. Not this playoff run hasn't bit them yet, but these are the type of games. If say next round come out and lose a game 2 or lose a game 1, we go, oh, well, we played an extra game. Remember in that Orlando series, played a tough physical extra game 5, and then Orlando series. These kind of things definitely matter. That's why they deserve the conversation from us and all of Celtics Nation. I know people, they still feel confident about the Celtics winning the series, but at the same time, you cannot be throwing away extra possessions. You cannot be turning the ball over 20 times in the playoffs. You can't be taking bad shots. You can't be allowing a team to shoot 9 more times than you, the way the Celtics did tonight, and out rebound yourself. It just, and every aspect too of that, just allowing Orlando to play to their advantage. Cannot do that later on in time in the playoffs and expect to find success. Thankfully, it's only in the first round. Thankfully, we're only talking about a 5-game scenario in which we've seen in the past. But you don't want to, it's like the habits, right? It's like, oh, here are the bad habits. Like, all right.
Right. You don't want these creeping up.
Nip them right now before they become a consistent thing and they actually affect something more serious later on down the line. And I'll say this too. In terms of the doubting the team that they'll respond, I think 100% game 4, they'll respond from this performance, because they cannot be happy right now. The team, whatever they give in the podium, the press conference, whatever they're saying right now, they cannot be happy with this one. If we're not happy with this one, we're going, my goodness, what is going on here? They're doing the same thing, because they're out there on the floor. They know they can win this series against the Magic. They know they can do it in a Hamley fashion, and it just hasn't quite happened yet. Will it happen in the future? We'll have to see going into game 4.
Absolutely. Well, guys, game 4 will be this Sunday, April 27th, 7 o'clock tip-off. You can catch that game on TNT, or, again, last chance to watch it on NBC Sports Boston this round before they are able to cover these games. Guys, just real quick, so you know, game 5 will now be on Tuesday, April 29th, an 8:30 tip-off in Boston. That game now is, again, necessary with the loss tonight. As for tonight, the Boston Celtics, they came up just shy of a game 3 win. However, they still lead the series 2-1, looking to go up 3-1 this Sunday against the Orlando Magic. Again, for tonight, a 95-93 loss for the Boston Celtics puts Orlando in a position, in an opportunity to tie this series at home. Guys, after the final buzzer sounds in that game 4 matchup, come right back here to the Celtics Talk Weekly YouTube channel. We'll have you covered for post-game live. You know what time it is. It's a shame. Every time we cue the music on a loss, it feels like we should strip the Celtics of a post-game entrance or exit with the music. You know what I'm saying? If they lose,
we need, okay, like in hockey, when like you say you're at a Bruins game, like I'll be at a Blues game, the other team scores and then they play like something like just like at the Blues game, they'll play the Oregon and they'll just play like I forgot what song they used to play, but it was just like it's the sound in the song is so like oh my god, we just gave up a goal. Like of course, like it's like dun, 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 it's like the injury thing in like the NFL where like dun, 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 and then it goes to commercial and they're like somebody got injured. That's what we need here at the end of these games. The rock music, I don't know if this sounds like that. I don't know. You guys gotta let us know. But again, guys, we will see you back on Sunday for a game 4 of the Celtics versus Magic, guys. And until next time, you know the deal. From Rob, from Seamus, from all the Celtics Weekly, go Celtics.